What's up, everybody? Welcome to GoJo with Mike Golic Jr. That is me. With me, back again, and scheduled well in advance this time, my father, Mike Golic Sr. Dad, what's going on?
Well, so for the first time, yes, I have been scheduled actually a couple of days in advance, which one of two things I take from that is, one, you actually wanted me as a guest and scheduled me for this, or two, you tried a lot of other people for this day, this taping, and you couldn't get them as you tried maybe earlier on a few days ago, and you decided, I'll just call up the old man and make it think like I wanted him all along. So I'm not sure which one it is, but you know, I'll go with it either way.
It sounds like you're going to continue to assume the worst of my intentions. Is that fair?
Without question.
Okay.
Without question.
All right. That makes an abundant amount of sense here. I will leave that mystery out there for you. In the meantime, we got a great show for everyone. Make sure you download, subscribe, rate, and review. Also, make sure you do the same for Golic and Smetty, wherever you get your podcast. And check us out on the DraftKings YouTube channel. Since we got all these nice new cameras, Dad, you don't have yours yet, so you still look like standard def, but I look like crystal clear HD, which is awesome.
You do. It's actually pretty cool. I look forward to getting all that equipment and for you setting it up, because if I have to set that up, the amount of things I would do to the walls around the house and punching them out of frustration would be many.
I honestly want to have Mom set up a time-lapse camera, and we'll just do it as a social experiment where we're going to put you in there and just give you the first go at it and see how you do.
No, that would be a big mistake. Before we get into this show, this big show that you have planned out, let me ask you something. We were talking on it on Golic and Smetty, and you are a big Netflix, Hulu, Apple TV, Showtime, HBO. You watch a lot of stuff on there. Maybe not as much as me. But
no, definitely not as much as you, who has watched the entire contents of streaming cable, premium cable, and the internet.
But I think I'm more the norm now of people out there consuming those different products. The one big difference of you and me is once it's over, I move on. You dive down the rabbit hole of all these things. I know you have seen Succession, which we will not spoil for anybody, the latest episode. Oh my God.
Oh, we're gonna spoil it. We just gotta say spoiler alerts. We're far enough away now to where we're gonna talk about it.
See, I couldn't. When I was taping my pod with Jess, she hadn't seen it.
Oh.
She hadn't, so I couldn't even do it there. So if you want to do it here, we can do it. That's fine. But what I wanted to ask you is, we both had watched a series on Netflix called Outer Banks. It's literally, Mike, it's awful. It's awful, but we just couldn't stop watching it. I'd be watching it, Jess would watch it and would be like, this is bad. And we keep watching 3 seasons worth, to where the 3rd season, we both just watched the final of that, and it may go on for a 4th. So I'm wondering, have you ever watched something to the end knowing full well it was awful, but you would become so invested in it that you just had to keep going?
Television series wise, probably not. I'll usually cut and bail on a TV series if it gets too bad, especially now because there's so much content out there. It's different back in the day. Like, you know, the sell that people always give when they're trying to get you to watch a new show that they like is, well, the first season and a half are kind of slow and you got to get through it. And you used to just kind of grit your teeth and bear it. But now you've got so many options and so many different platforms that I'm like, all right, if I really don't like something early on, I'll try and give it a chance. But at the end of the day, there's a million other things I could be watching, so I'm usually not going to bog myself down with that.
All right, that's pretty impressive, because I'm on 2 more. I'm watching Night Agent, which I kind of like. And then there's one that was called Wrong Side of the Tracks. I just finished the 2nd season. Again, while I'm watching it, I'm like, this is bad, yet I keep watching it. And then there's another one, I'm on season 2, called Biohackers, which is even worse.
Where do you find this shit?
Oh, Mike, I mean, listen, I don't know.
What the? But I'm genuinely curious. Like, how do you're not online as much as I am. How do you find these shows?
Every now and then, I'll either throw it out on Twitter about a good show out there. You know who's given me a couple of good ones is Ricky, your mother's hairdresser for 25 years, and I go get my hair cut by him as well. He's given me some pretty good ones. But I'll throw it out there, or I'll just start going on all these different sites and just start looking at them, and I'll read about them, and I say, I'll give this a chance. But that's a problem. I start watching it, and then I'm like, this isn't really good, and I don't do what you do. There's a lot of other content. Just go to it. I usually just try and stick it out, and it's really a mistake. It's really a mistake because I have a couple of really hell loops going on right now that I'm watching.
You and I both, I think, have a pretty high threshold for what it would actually take to turn something off. Like, you and Mom, what was the movie that you guys actually walked out of?
Hope Floats. It's with, I think it was with Sandra Bullock? I'm not sure. It was one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. And we did walk out. Another one was... Who's Sacha Baron Cohen? He had those. I forgot
Bruno.
Those movies. And he had some of those back in the day. We walked out of one of those as well. We just couldn't take the stupidity of it.
By the way, Hope Floats is Sandra Bullock and Harry Connick Jr.
Yes. So we walked out of two. We walked out of one of the Sacha Baron Cohen movies, and we walked out of Hope Floats. So, and I can't remember if we did or not. I think I stayed through because it was a football movie, but one of the worst football movies ever was Any Given Sunday. Ever.
It's a comically bad movie.
The lack of actual football, portrayal things is stunning. And I hear people saying it's one of the most realistic. Yes, normally you get the backup quarterback reading the newspaper on the sideline. That's usually what happens on a field. But I'll never forget. I'm sure I've told you this story, but I was on air. This is back at ESPN when I was there, and Dan Patrick was there, and Colin still. We had the old crew still there, and I was on Dan's show talking about it because I talked about it on Mike and Mike. I was on Dan's show just ripping it, and then Dan told me as we were coming to the end, he said, "Just so you know, the director of the movie has been on hold this whole time. He's coming on next." And I'm like, you know me, Mike. I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. That guy is never going to direct me in a movie, and it was awful. So, that was it. And I didn't even stick around to listen to hear what he had to say, but I'm sure it wasn't good things.
Oh my God! I thought for sure they were just going to roll you to the next segment, and let you have it out with this guy.
Oh God, no.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, that one's a pretty terrible movie. That gave us a great character in Willie Beam, and that's a jersey Brandon wears a lot around here. But yeah, also really bad one. Awesome speech. Like Al Pacino's Game of Inches speech is a classic. It is the best thing to come from that movie, and probably one of the best things to come from any sports movie, I would argue, is that speech alone. The rest of the movie, though, yes, terrible. Horrific.
Awful.
I had the conversation, I thought of you the other day, actually. I was talking to a friend of mine about The Replacements and how it's actually a really anti-union movie in a way that's really deeply uncomfortable to look back at now.
Well, and what's weird is because I went through that in '87 when we struck. I was with the Houston Oilers and the replacement players came in, and I was one of those guys. Again, I threw rocks at the buses with the players that were coming in, and and over time, I was like, I get it. I get it with those guys. They weren't on a team and they were trying. This was an opportunity, and some of them, got a chance to stay. Like. You look in Philadelphia where Buddy Ryan was, and I wasn't in Philly yet, they cut everybody. I mean, they didn't want anybody there. Where I was in Houston, they kept all the replacement players. So we basically had like 130 people on the practice field fighting all the time because they brought the replacement players in to play with us. But as time went on, I was really like, I'm not mad at those guys. It was their opportunity to try and get a foothold in, and I understood it from their part. But in the time, I was union, and I'm still a union guy. I was with the union guy the whole time, obviously, in the NFL. But I kind of understood what they were doing.
Yeah, I guess it was more just in the movie. Like, you love Shane Falco and all those guys. You understood what they were doing. But they painted out the players that were striking to be the greediest,
the
football-hatingest bad guys.
Yes, that's so true. And it was amazing in our strike in real life. Here I was, so it was my third year. I made $62,000 my first year, then $70,000. I think I was at like maybe $90,000. I mean, obviously... So, I mean, when you were trying to get into the league, the minimum was $500,000.
Rookie minimum was $420 when I was coming into the league.
I made $62,000 my rookie year. So I'm in my third year, I think, making $90,000. And the multimillionaires broke the picket line. all the big name guys who were making and I'm holding the sign going, what the hell's going on? We just got blasted out of the water because all the big stars are crossing the picket line, so we're screwed. So that was real life right there.
Yeah, no, it's reality is a cold fish hitting you in the face sometimes, and I guess it's that thing of be your own people sometimes, or in that case, the people that had even more than you in that case. Honestly, trash movies is a great segue into what I wanted to talk to you about. We got plenty of stuff to get to today. The Colts and Lamar Jackson in the news, Succession, which we will discuss later on in the show. We've got some Grill Golic questions. We went back to the well on that one, took your questions from Twitter, so we got plenty of those to lob Dad's way. But good Lord, Dad, do you like the play-in games? Because I've generally been a fan of them. Last night, the Lakers-Timberwolves game really tried how much I was going to be able to rock with this shit.
Well, I mean, that game from a fan standpoint, I mean, sure, we're going, Anthony Davis, what the hell are you doing following Conley with a tenth of a second to go, giving him 3 free throws, but it went to overtime. So Jess and I were talking about this as well, because you have hockey, basketball, baseball are all series sports, best of 3, best of 5, best of 7, whatever it is. Now, those games, the first playing games between 7 and 8, were not loser goes home.
Right.
So it was winner is in as the 7 seed. Loser now plays the winner of the 9-10s, which are playing as we're taping this. So they get another chance. But the 9-10s that are playing, Bulls, Raptors, Thunder, Pelicans, now it is truly lose and go home. It's like in baseball, after 162, if you have a tie, they play one game. And there's something that's pretty cool about series sports where it comes down to one game. Because normally at a best of 7, we gave that one away, we got another one or whatever. Here, it can be the one and done, like with the 9 and 10. And, the 8th now that lost the other games get to play one more. I kind of like it just for how they differentiate from what we've normally seen.
I'm with you. I love the play-in format, and it's worked out very well. So this is the 4th year of it for the NBA, and they've been fortunate to have star-laden teams that have wound up in the play-in. You've gotten the Lakers in there. You've gotten the Golden State Warriors in there. You've gotten teams that are a draw to this new thing they've been trotting out. My only problem with last night is that was some of the worst basketball I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
And I admittedly didn't watch day in and day out all the time over the course of this season. But my God, the amount of people on both teams that wanted to lose that game at the end, most notably Anthony Davis, who decided with about 0.3 seconds left to foul Spencer Dinwiddie shooting a 3 near the buzzer. There was 0.1 seconds left on the clock when Spencer Dinwiddie went to not Spencer Dinwiddie, Jesus Christ. Thinking of the beef there. Mike Conley put him at the line and sent him there. One of the more boneheaded plays you'll ever see. He jokingly apologized after the game in the LeBron James interview with Allie LaForce, but that was merely one part of the comedy of errors that went on in that sequence. And if you're a Timberwolves fan, I truly don't know how you get out of bed and do it every day. Truly.
I'm with you. I'll give you that. The basketball wasn't great, but I like the concept of it. So, that was a rule change 4 years ago. Another question I want to ask you is we had that rule change 4 years ago. We've had the pitch clock rule change, which I think has been fantastic for baseball. The games are averaging 2 hours and 39 minutes. Last time we had them right around there was 1985. They averaged 2 hours and 45 minutes. So baseball is going to probably beat that. And I enjoy watching it now just for the how it's all sped up. And as we've talked, I'm sure you've said as well, players will get used to it. All the people bitching and moaning about it, players get used to any new change, and they're going to figure this one out as well. So that led me to another question that I asked, and I'm just springing this on you. So, this might actually take a little bit of thought, maybe to not answer now, but I know mine. What sport has had the most significant rule change that literally, in a way, changed the sport?
So pitch clock for baseball obviously is one that feels most severe because it's right huge.
Now. Right, because that game has never had a clock on it. No part of the game has ever had a clock.
Sticking with the NBA, like taking away the hand checking certainly has changed the dimensions of the court. I was having that conversation with our old producer, Devin Kane, the other day about even in this Lakers-Timberwolves game, for the Lakers, the amount of open threes that they were missing in that game, but the amount of open threes that both teams were taking in that game, just because the way you space the floor now, the way you have to guard people, it leads to so many more of those opportunities. And because you got to cover so much damn ground now because of how the game's evolved, you have to kind of pick and choose your spots, or you're going to wind up gassed at the end of these games like LeBron and AD were. And I think the origin point of all that probably started with how they started to take away the hand check.
Yeah, I'm going to go earlier than that, and a lot of it is by generation, and I'll explain why. But, football has had its share of rule changes that some I've liked, some I haven't liked. I'll be wondering if they'll take some of the XFL rules and try them.
Yeah.
I liked when the NFL moved back the extra point, quite honestly, because that was an automatic, and now you got guys that miss it. Other sports have changed things as well. But I think what I'm going to tell you, and the reason why I know the effect, is because I saw the other side of it. Now, a lot of people, your age weren't growing up when this was going on. To me, the most significant change in sports or rule is in the NBA. Well, really, it's in all basketball now, and it's the shot clock. Because there used to be this thing called four corners.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
And, it was hell. You got a certain amount of lead. As a matter of fact, I just looked at, there was a high school game in an area where they don't have the shot clock, and the game was 4-2. So, it's just four corners. When you got up a little bit, you just pass the ball around the four corners, and you keep the ball for minutes at a time. And that's all I was kind of used to as I was growing up before the shot clock came into play. That I think that was easily one of the most significant changes in all of sports.
I can't imagine what it was like in the crowd for the 4-2 game. Like, I know T-ball parents, you guys lived through hell going to watch that. Watching a 4-2 basketball game that I guess had to be, at the grade school or high school level more than likely?
Yeah. High school level, yeah.
High school basketball, to me, the best thing about it and the best thing about high school sports in general are areas where you've got a couple of prospects sprinkled in, where you got like one or two good kids and you can see them with the meat of the bell curve or on the court with them and see how much better they are than their peers out there. In a 4-2 game, you've clearly got the absence of that and anything resembling team offense. You don't even get any of that Hoosier shit that people claim.
Right, exactly.
Which I wouldn't know about because I reject Hoosiers and refuse to see it.
But that's one you and I are having a big. We're going to watch it together one time.
Dan, I can promise you, one of those movies I'm going to eject from. At this point, I got to stick to the bit. I'm going to slander Hoosiers publicly without ever seeing it because I kind of generally know enough of what it's about, and watching white people pass doesn't have a lot of appeal to me.
Listen, I get it. And listen, also, when I'm talking about the shot clock, that's why I said all. When I said when I was growing up, now the shot clock was already in. I think it was in 54 or something like that. They're talking about in 1950, the Fort Wayne Pistons beat the Minneapolis Lakers 19-18, the lowest scoring NBA game in record. See, I'm talking about more college and high school when I was growing up, and there still was no shot clock that was going on, mostly like in high school when I was watching and stuff. So that to me, I think is without question one of the biggest changes that has moved on. And I believe I should have looked up this earlier, looking up the origin. I believe it was in 54. NBA owners voted to implement a 24-second shot clock on April 22nd, 1954. And I think that's one of the biggest changes ever to occur in a sport.
I'd agree. Basketball, you had that and them adding the 3-point line.
Right.
I would say basketball probably has claim to this because those are seismic changes. The 3-point line and the advent of that and then people learning math has basically given us modern basketball. So
yeah.
I'd say basketball probably wins. I was looking up some other ones here. Major League Baseball implementing drug testing in 2003.
Oh, Mike, that was when they tested everybody and they said, I think it was 5%. If it's under 5%, they won't do anything.
Was
if
that
it's
the
over
one that got Big Papi? Where they said they weren't going to release it?
They weren't going to release it. It's exactly right. Yeah. Real quick to finish up on the shot clock, I mentioned in 1950 at a 19-18 game. The first game with the new technology of the shot clock, October 30th, 1954, the Rochester Royals beat the Celtics 98-95. How much do you think fans went crazy in that game, watching all that kind of scoring go on after watching no shot clock before that and seeing low score games?
I mean, legitimately, it had to be like the first time you have sex.
Yeah.
Like, just a whole new world opens up to you.
I didn't know this would happen.
Yeah, what?
And you're looking in college, that didn't happen until I was in college. That was the mid-'80s. Basically, when I was getting out of college, well, I graduated in 84, right in the mid-'80s. That's when the NCAA instituted a 45-second shot clock, now down to 35 seconds. So, and there are still, high schools have as well, but there are still high schools that have not. So, like I said, as I was growing up, I was born in 62, watching that college ball and that in high school ball with no shot clock was agonizing to see.
That's the closest I think we would get to the hypothetical I always love of if you got a time machine and got to go back to like when your parents were kids growing up and just hand them an iPhone and watch their brains.
Yeah.
Just watch what happens. Yeah. That had to be what it was like for the people once they set that shot clock on and everyone actually had to try and score and wanted to score and was incentivized to score by the game. Like, what an insane concept. No wonder it took so long for sports to become popular when we had these archaic rules that favored defense.
So maybe we could say it was the NBA who started the fans will like it better if there's a lot of offense in our sport.
Yeah,
because basically every sport has gone that route of making the rules for the offense.
Pretty much, and the results sort of speak for themselves. So that makes a lot of sense. Is the dumbest rule change of all time, or has this aged better now because of what we've seen? All-star games become Major League Baseball having their all-star game decide home field advantage for the World Series.
Oh, I hate it. I've never liked it. Greeny and I used to fight over this all the time. That's what he thought. He thought the way to incentivize it was to put home field on it. My thought was it's an all-star game. Who gives a shit? You know what? It's just like the Pro Bowl. Who cares? Who cares what it is? I always thought in baseball, the best record in baseball, it should go that way.
Right.
Kind
what
of like
a novel concept.
Basketball.
You play all these goddamn games.
You play 162 games, have it mean something. I completely agree. So, yeah, having the All-Star game decide that when you're going to throw basically every pitcher out there an inning and all that, I'm not doing that. I can't stand that in baseball, and I can't stand the fact that every team has to be represented. I think that's ridiculous. But I threw my hands up on that a long time ago.
Yeah, had to give that one up. So at GoJo Show on Twitter, your favorite rule change in sports, if you got it. Dad, did anything you saw from the Lakers the other night make you think they're going to be able to beat the Grizzlies? Because we already had plenty of shit talking coming their way. Courtesy of, why am I forgetting his name right now? Dylan Brooks. Jesus Christ. How do I forget one of the NBA's premier villains who basically called out and said, I want to play the Lakers. It'd be cool to end LeBron James' season in the first round. Did anything you see from the Lakers, which included, by the way, LeBron James looking like he was passing with somebody else's hands at the end of that game? The amount of inexplicable passes he just launched off the court were more than I've ever seen from that guy who looked thoroughly exhausted after the game. Do you think they can actually take down this Grizzlies team that we've kind of ignored ever since the Ja Morant stuff happened?
You know, Dylan Brooks would be such a great heel in WWE, wouldn't he? Yeah. He would be the perfect heel. I love.
He is basically a WWE heel at this point.
He really, that is true.
A lot of jorts.
He really is. Listen, the Lakers are as healthy as if they've been, right? Anthony Davis, the way he stepped up when LeBron was out, was hurt with that foot injury. AD was a monster, and that's normally you kind of cross your fingers that AD makes it through a game the way he's been injured through his career, but he was a rock solid while LeBron was gone. I guess because they're healthy, Mike, you kind of give them a shot. I think Memphis is better, but enough. Listen, you're talking about the 1 and 2 seeds in the West that nobody really talks. Everybody's saying, well, God, if Denver Nuggets, if they don't do it now, they're never going to do it. You know, here they are, the number 1 seed. And then you have Memphis and Sacramento who really I guess by the casual fan, kind of look right past them, right? And they're wondering, where's Golden State? Where's the Lakers, the teams they're used to seeing in those spots, the Phoenix Suns at the last couple of years, but for Denver, this has got to be the year. I'm a big fan of the Grizzlies. I really am. And Ja Morant, I know he went through his issues and all that, and I hope he squares all that away, because he's one of those guys when you do that, that radio in the summertime when you have nothing to talk about and you say, who would you spend $50 for and go watch in the league more than anybody? For me, it would almost be Ja Morant, for as exciting as he is with the ball and the way he slams over people. So I still have a hard time believing the Lakers are going to take them out. I don't think it'll happen.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, and especially for the Anthony Davis factor of this, because you're right. He stepped up big for them too in this last game for the minutes where Karl Anthony Towns was off the court, because Cat went nuts in that game.
Yeah, he did.
Anthony Edwards was a no-show. I think 3 of 17 from the field, 0 of 9 for 3 with 9 points on the night. Karl Anthony Towns finished with 24 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists, and 3 blocks in that game, but got into a bunch of foul trouble, and 80 went dumb in those minutes there. Right. Jaren Jackson Jr. is a little bit of a different proposition now, guy who's up for Defensive Player of the Year, and is that force in the middle for that Memphis team. So I'll be excited for that series. It's another good one. Like you said, people might look past Memphis a little bit, I think, just because we were all kind of unsure how to deal with everything post Ja Morant off the court issues, but they are a team that's had a bunch of personality. Dylan Brooks is a big part of that.
Yep.
And so I think them up against what's been one of the traditional powers in LeBron James, that's good for business. That's good for everybody involved. So that'll be
I think it's great for business. And, with Minnesota, they have a chance. They'll take on the winner of New Orleans and Oklahoma City. I think they play on Friday to then be the 8th seed to take on the Denver Nuggets. And I think the sport where you see the most 8-1 upsets is hockey. I believe if we go through it all, it would probably be hockey. But enough people that watch basketball casually are probably thinking, oh, man, the Lakers, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Memphis? Yeah, Memphis got this Ja Morant guy. They may not know a hell of a lot more about him. And for Denver, boy, what a thud that would be. I wouldn't see him losing to any of the 3 teams that they have the potential to play. But it's always interesting the way it starts.
Yeah, and like you said, the Phoenix Suns are sort of the specter looming in the darkness now that Kevin Durant's been back there. We had JJ Redick on the pod. He said he could see 7 different teams coming out of the West just based on how wide open that is. So
how many coming out of the East did he say? 2, 3 tops? Probably 3, right?
3 teams.
Milwaukee, Boston, Philadelphia. That's it.
That's a 3-team race over there.
And that's a 3-power team race too. Those are good ball clubs. Wow.
Which, again, and like everything else, going to come down to injury, right? For the Bucks, how healthy is Chris Middleton? That sore knee down the stretch of the regular season. If he's good to go, they're probably a team that can power their way out of there. But we'll have plenty of time for all that, Dad. I did want to get to this because you and I are going to be part of the DraftKings draft show that's coming up. Night 1 of the NFL draft. Me, you, and Charlotte Wilder going out to Boston, going to hang out there. And we know Mike Lombardi and the crew out in Vegas is going to be a part of this. Jesse and Emerson from the Sweat are going to be a part of this. It's going to be a ton of fun. And so much of what's coming up with that is going to be dictated by the jockeying for the top picks here. We heard the Cardinals thinking about, or according to Adam Schefter, fielding questions and calls from about 6 teams looking to trade up in that 3 spot. And then you've got the Colts, who are the 1 team sitting at the 4 spot that talked at the owners' meeting publicly about, we'd kick the tires on Lamar Jackson. He's a really good player. We're in the market for really good players, and away we go. Apparently now they've kind of calmed down with that a little bit. Shane Steichen came out the other day and was asked whether the team had turned its focus away from free agent Lamar Jackson and towards the NFL draft. And he said, quote, "We're focused on the draft. I'm focused on the guys in the building right now. That's where we're at." Jim Irsay also said, when he asked about the prospect of trading those 2 first-round picks to get Lamar Jackson, he said, we're not really about that. Those picks are like gold. Our belief, my belief's always been you build through the draft. So where are you at on that? What should the Colts be doing relative to Lamar Jackson or the draft for a quarterback?
Well, I mean, a lot of it, first off, I would agree with Arizona trading back. Arizona may have one of the, if not the worst, one of the worst rosters in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
So you need multiple picks. So you can sit at 3 and take a Will Anderson or a Jalen Carter because they need defensive line help. They lost a couple of players there, Zach Allen, and obviously J.J. Watt retired. So trade back and get multiple picks. I think that's what they need. As far as the Colts, I mean, what other team, I guess I would first ask that, what other team would possibly be in the running for Lamar Jackson anymore? Would it be Washington, or are they completely set with Sam Howell, running the show there?
Should be, but
I
that's
know
what
that.
they've said publicly.
I agree. How about Tennessee, who's trying to trade away Derrick Henry? Now they have, Malik Willis, correct?
Yeah, they've got Malik Willis. Tannehill's still on the roster. I think set to make there. Like $38 million this year.
So really, I mean, I could see Washington. They're really quarterback hungry. But the Colts, here's the difference. I think with the Colts, I was surprised last year with the Colts. I picked them to win the division. I thought Matty Ice would come in and play a lot better than he did. They're going on what now? They're 6 or 7 different starting quarterbacks since the Andrew Luck retirement. Their O-line definitely took a step back, but I could see them coming back. I liked their defense, but they didn't play up to what I thought they could play. But I think they're a team that could win now. Now, if you draft a Will Levis and make him the starter, which you should probably do, if you're gonna draft a young guy, that's what you probably would do. Even though Gardner Minshew could be the starter there and bridge him, quite honestly, as well. That would be a team I would think about doing it. I mean, I think they have a win-ready now team. You have a great running back in Taylor, so then you have a quarterback that can run as well. That's only going to help your passing game. But I'll continue to say what I've said all along, and I'm not saying this to be the guy that was right. I said all along, I think he's going to end up back in Baltimore. I think Baltimore made this tag for him, the $32 million tag, because they were at an impasse, and I think I've said this before on your show. Baltimore basically said, all right, we're going to transition tag you. Go find another offer. And then, I have a feeling they would match it. But I think they were trying to show Lamar, go see what your value is worth out there. And we know it ain't a whole lot right now. Nobody's been knocking down the door, at least that we have any insiders have found out. So I think the Colts might be the only team that I think it would be a viable thing to do to bring him in, because I think Lamar is an excellent quarterback, but I still think he's going to end up back in Baltimore. Now Odell Beckham signs there. I know he got that offer and then shopped it a little bit. And really, I think everybody else was like, how the hell did you pull that off in Baltimore?
Right.
And I still wonder why Baltimore didn't try and get a couple of receivers while Lamar wasn't asking for $250 million guaranteed when he was on the beginning of his rookie contract.
Yeah.
That was unbelievable to me. Now they signed a guy coming off an ACL, great receiver when he's right, but still coming off an ACL for 15, possibly 18 mil a year. Mike, I still think he's ending up back in Baltimore, and I think he'll play on $32 million. I have yet to hear of a person where it worked out for sitting out and missing out on that 1 year of money. And I keep looking back to Kirk Cousins to say, now he stayed healthy, which helped, but there's a guy that did the business of football and got himself a whole hell of a lot of guaranteed money.
Yeah, Lamar's so much better than Kirk's ever been.
Oh, no, he is.
Well, no, I guess that's what I mean is I feel like he could be the one. Like the other positions and the other players we've seen do it, we know the Le'Veon Bell thing was most recent. As a running back, totally different ball game, totally different math on what him sitting out versus what Lamar sitting out means for your team. I still firmly believe there's no way he plays on that tag.
But
I don't think there's any way.
I gotta again get acquainted on all the ramifications. If he doesn't, well, he's still property of the Ravens, right?
He is, but
I mean,
he's not being fined by them because he's not under contract. He wouldn't have signed the franchise tender.
Right, no, I understand
and they
that.
wouldn't have a quarterback. Like, it hurts them way more than it hurts him for him to hold out. And like we talked about the strike before. That's the biggest piece of leverage that you've got as a player is withholding your services when you're someone whose services matter as much as Lamar's.
I completely agree with you about that thought process. And I still think he plays. I still don't see him not playing. And I think one of the precedents we saw was the fact that Dak Prescott couldn't work out a deal, had a major injury, and still got paid. So Lamar's getting paid even if Lamar plays and gets hurt. He's still going to get paid.
He is.
And I know I know it's a risk going out there to play, which weird to say on the 1 year, $32 million deal. It sounds, I almost have to slap myself for saying it, but we're talking the bigger context of the bigger contracts.
I would still say it's even more likely that Lamar gets re-signed to a bigger deal that's maybe not as big as he wanted in Baltimore, that's maybe not $230 million plus. That could be more likely to me than him playing on that 1 year tag.
Well, I would 100% agree with you, but that's going to have to come from Lamar's side, right?
But yeah, now, I guess again, he can wait till after the draft to find that out, right? Because we're going to have a whole new set of teams with different problems coming off the draft if all of a sudden the board doesn't shake out how they want. We've talked about the trades that could potentially be coming at the top of the draft that are going to mess with a whole lot of people and what they thought was going to happen. And so that's the only thing I'm saying is he's got time on his side right now.
He does. So I'll ask you this. Do you think when Lamar plays next, he will be doing it under and I don't want to just say a guaranteed contract because Kirk Cousins had a 3-year, $84 million guaranteed contract, that he will be playing under a bigger guaranteed contract than Deshaun Watson?
I would say probably not at this rate.
I don't think so either.
But I would say probably not at the juncture we're at right now. Going back to the original point, though, the Colts should absolutely do that.
Yes.
With their position, like you're looking, all right, it is the price of 2 first-rounders, and then you got to pay him all that money. You'd be spending at least a first-rounder on a quarterback. And listen, if you were in the market for one of the guys you really want at the top of this draft, you're probably going to have to get up to the Arizona spot at 3. Like they're going to be one of the teams that would be knocking on the door. I don't imagine you'd want to sit around and take your 4th choice at quarterback if that's the direction you're going to go to try and build your team for the future. And so I just kind of do the cost benefit of that. And like you said, defense has been in the last couple years in a mode that's ready to win. Offensively, you've started to add some weapons. You got to figure out the left tackle situation because that's been your Achilles heel. But you're a lot closer to that point of things. I think Atlanta should still be in on this completely, especially the way they've started to build out their roster, trading for Jeff Okudah the other day from the Lions. So there's teams that have been out that should be in, especially as we go through the draft, they don't wind up with one of these quarterbacks falling to them.
It would be interesting, and again, I don't know if any of this has happened, but if Lamar let it be known, I was going to say through his agent, but he doesn't have one, that he is now willing to not have a fully guaranteed contract of who else might come a calling. Well, because remember, Baltimore, they can still trade him and not do the 2 first-round thing.
No, they can't.
Can still basically do it like a sign-and-trade thing.
What I was going to say, and what I think went very under-publicized, was coming off owners' meetings. We talked about it here. Dan Graziano said in his write-up after, the sense he got talking to everyone at owners' meetings was that Lamar Jackson was not actually pushing for a fully guaranteed contract. He just wanted more fully guaranteed money than Deshaun Watson. He wanted to be north of that $230 million. But, Dad, the way this had been framed was owners were afraid of the fully guaranteed precedent. And so now you remove that. Yeah, it's a shit ton of money, but we know all the financial games that you can play with these things.
Yes,
and so as we go towards that number anyway, I don't know. It just seemed to me that was a way bigger deal than it got made out to be.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Listen, 6-year deal, $300 million, $230 guaranteed, and then you kind of lay it out in different ways. I would imagine there are much smarter people than us that can figure out the money side of this thing. So we'll see. It's going to be a monster contract. And then the interesting thing to watch is if he doesn't get that fully guaranteed deal, which we both don't think he will Joe Burrow fight for it? Will Justin Herbert fight for it? Will Jalen Hurts fight for it? Will they be willing to cross that line and not play until they get a fully guaranteed deal? I don't know. I don't know if any of these players will do that.
Yeah, I heard Dominique Foxworth talking about this with Bomani one day. It's a hard thing to try and ask of somebody because setting that precedent is about having somewhat of an eye or somewhat of a feeling about who comes after you. And saying no to all of this money that's right in your face. Like someone's willing to offer you in the range of $200 million. Guaranteed. You're going to get it. Saying no to that takes balls that most of us don't have. And so that's why I feel like in most cases, this one, because it got to the point where you've got the non-exclusive tag and all this funny shit that doesn't happen to quarterbacks. Like Burrow and Herbert are going to be signed well ahead of this the way Lamar should have been. And I feel like that's the kind of reason why we don't see this happen very often.
Yep. And I would love to see it for players. I am always for every player getting every freaking dime that they could get. I think it's just going to be hard because the owners know. The owners want to continue to say the Deshaun Watson deal was an outlier, not a precedent, while players like Lamar want to say it's a precedent. And again, it's going to be who blinks first in these. And a lot of times the billionaires don't blink.
No, it's a lot easier to hold the line with 31 people plus the Packers than it is the entire constituency of the NFLPA, as you know very, very well. So they'll be excited. I mean, we've got no shortage because there are quarterbacks this year of juicy plot lines going into night one. So again, DraftKings YouTube will be streaming there. The DraftKings social media channels will be streaming on all those. It'll be a good time.
I'm not gonna lie, Mike. I forgot how much work goes into preparing for a draft show. When Greeny and I used to call them on radio or I did them on TV, I mean, there would be a point where I just started sitting in my cubicle at ESPN, having to go, not like it is today for you, having to go to the tape library at ESPN and actually pull physical tape of all the players that I had to go over. And this was for all the rounds because I did it through all
I was going to say,
3 days.
You were like a day 3 all-star on the draft too.
Yes. So Green and I would do the first day, first round on radio, and then I would do sometimes day 2 and 3 on TV. So I had forgotten the amount of work because now, and I know you and I were doing the first round, but still the amount of work that goes, and what helped is back then too, I was calling college games like you call college games.
Yep.
Now I call NFL games, so from the NFL side I can come at it, but getting used to these, because I stopped calling college games maybe 2 years ago, so I actually called some of these players' games, so I have a little bit of recall from that. But it's been fun kind of diving back into it again, breaking down a player. I mean, I know everybody's breaking them down, but like you, I like to watch my own film and see what I see on a player and break that down. And right now, I mean, I think 3 positions, quarterback, wide receiver, and cornerback, they may take up the half of the first round. They may take up 15, 16 picks.
Wide receiver is going to be an interesting one because it's kind of a complicated class because so many of them are slot guys. Like Jackson Smith and Jigba for sure is going to be up there. But then like Zay Flowers, Josh Downs, those are the other names. And then you start to get into the range of Quentin Johnston, who's I think gone on some top 30 visits, the wide out of TCU, who's like the one big guy in the top grouping there. And so corner is the fun one. I finally started diving into that group. Dad, how much have you turned on Devin Witherspoon yet? The cornerback out of Illinois?
From Illinois.
That's a bad motherfucker.
And there are some of these guys, I've been looking at, I just have some of my notes here. You got Porter 6'3", Gonzalez 6'1", Ringo 6'2", Banks 6'1", Witherspoon 6 foot, Cam Smith 6'1", Forbes 6'1". I mean, these guys are taller too. But you're right about Witherspoon. I mean, he is a physical, shutdown type corner that will get right up in your grill. And that's always the biggest test because, again, for everybody, remember, they get 5 yards of contact now. College, they could contact all the way down the field until the ball was in the air. Now you got to get your work in 5 yards before you got to let them go. So you better have the ability to turn those hips, recover, have some quickness and speed to get in the path of that ball. But, I mean, this is a very, very, very deep position. Yeah, no, super fun class. I mean, corner, tight end, running back, stupid deep this year. Like, first round, we might be lucky to see, at this point, Bijan's probably going to go in the first round. I'd be stunned. He's just such a physical outlier. When you're getting Saquon Barkley plus comps, you're in a pretty good space in life. He's the NFL running back of today. Sure. Where he can run the ball, and he's a mismatch in receiving as well. So he is that guy. He's not just a running back. How crazy is it, too? His backup, Roschon Johnson. I don't know if you've come across the former quarterback is probably going to be a day 2 pick coming out of the same backfield. Isn't that unbelievable? Even like better pass protector than Bijan, because he's got to be when you're not as gifted as Bijan. Exactly. But what an insane running back room of riches they had at Texas. Yeah, but you're right. There's only going to be one that goes in the first round where there's going to be multiple O linemen, multiple cornerbacks, multiple wide receivers, really tackles, And then
yeah,
I do think there'll be 5 quarterbacks. I think Hendon Hooker is going to take it later in the first round.
You're buying the Mike Tannenbaum Kool-Aid that he put out there the other day. Did you see him? He thinks he's going to. No. That Mike Tannenbaum said the other day he thinks Hendon Hooker is going to end up as the best quarterback from this class.
So listen, here's again, we have no idea. If 5 quarterbacks go, half are going to be failures. Now, 2.5 can't be failures, but say 4 go. The 4 that may go in the first however many picks, history says 2 are going to be flops. I mean, so if you got 5 in the first round, I'm a fan of Hendon Hooker. There's no way I can sit here and say who is going to be the best. We don't know. I mean, we've seen too many guys where that guy's a can't miss and he misses, to, well, I'm not sure about that guy and he's a hit. We don't know. But I like Hendon Hooker. I know one of the things being said is he played in a quarterback-friendly offense, that Joe Milton, when he took over, when he got hurt, the transfer from Michigan, I think Milton transferred from. He had a big bowl game.
He did, but Hendon also beat Joe Milton out because he wasn't performing well enough in the same offense when he first took over.
I agree with you.
Insane reason.
So that argument to me isn't holding a ton of water. I am a monster fan of Hooker. Now, they said he could be ready to go by the start of the season, but he's not going to be able to, I think, do a lot up to that point. So I think it's more of a redshirt year for him. But he is one I'm definitely keeping an eye on at where he goes and what he ends up doing.
Yeah, I mean, if you're asking me to bet on one of these guys to be the best out of the class, I'm still probably going Bryce or CJ.
I'm going CJ. If I had to pick one, him and Bryce, to me, I mean, it is razor thin. But if you pointed a gun and said you got to pick one, I'll go CJ Stroud.
Yeah, that'd probably be mine. I know Bryce, we talked about yesterday, minus 300 on DraftKings to be the number 1 overall pick. He's the betting favorite. God love, it has to be nice to be Chris Mortensen and be so respected that when you come out and give the report that what you're hearing is that Bryce Young is the guy at Carolina, it actually affects gambling lines. That's
How about it? How great is that you could affect gambling? I would have loved to have that power. And then obviously gamble and win.
Yes, exactly.
Listen, I'm a Bryce Young fan. Listen, the whole size thing, especially the height, I don't care anymore. You know, I mean, I think we're past that.
It's just the thickness that worries me.
It's exactly right. It's exactly right, man. And a lot of times, think about it, a quarterback, I'd like to know a running quarterback that has gotten hurt. Has he gotten hurt running or has he gotten hurt in the pocket? Because the one thing I will say is when they're running, they now control everything. They can control getting out of bounds. They can control sliding. They can control if they're going to try and get that extra yard or 2 for a first down. I almost feel like they're in more control when they're running to possibly not get hurt than when they're in the pocket and sometimes can't see the bullets around them.
That's the Lamar Jackson thing. Both of his injuries the last 2 seasons have been in the pocket. They haven't been while he's been on the move. And Bryce is mobile, but he's really not a runner either. He's good at creating on the fly. He's the best at keeping his eyes downfield and creating as he goes
I
there.
Agree.
And you're right. He's been small for a long time. My worry always is going to be, we saw him get banged up last year and miss a couple of games with the shoulder at Alabama. All it takes is one. And that's what you're worried about with him. So that's going to continue to be the debate there. We'll have plenty more of those as we get and see the picks coming off the board in night 1. Dad, we opened it up to the people, though. I want to get to Grill Golic so we can get some of these questions in front of you. A long-running staple from the Mike and Mike in the morning days. And people showed up and showed out on this one, Dad. So I want to start with this. This feels like an appropriate place to start for us. Again, at GoJo Show on Twitter is where you can always send questions. We will always take and appreciate them.
Yes, we will.
This one comes from Spencer Ray. Settle this debate. What's worse, pooping your pants as an adult or texting a risky picture and accidentally sending it to the wrong person?
Oh, well, there's no doubt the risky picture, because that can end up being seen by everybody. Mm-hmm. You crap your pants, you can be the only person that knows about it, right?
Depending on the smell.
But then you deal with it and you move on. It's not something, unless you do it in a room full of people, like I know at some of your parties at Notre Dame, that's happened to some people. But
some people. I have no idea who some people would be.
No. I will not name names. But for the most part, and listen, we've all done it, right? We've all done it to some extent. And you can kind of keep it under wraps a little bit, where a risky picture goes to the wrong person, then they send it out somewhere else. Before you know it, everybody sees it. So to me, that's way, way worse.
Well, we saw it most recently in Succession last season when you had Roman send a dick pic to his dad, for God's sake. So
yeah, that's a tough call. Don't ever do that to me.
No, we're good on that one. I would say I gave up that life, but I was never really about it to begin with, so we don't.
I never understood that. I never understood snapping an inappropriate picture and hitting send anywhere. I mean, there is no way any good can come of it.
Generational differences there. Sometimes that's the currency of love. I'm not going to knock anyone for trying it. This next one is from Zach Parker. Okay. Thinking about putting an addition on our house and guessing that Dad has some home renovation lessons learned. Dad, did you ever do anything like that, or is that strictly Grandpa Lou since he was a bricklayer and actually worked with his hands?
Well, we worked side jobs with my dad, your Grandpa Lou, God rest his soul. We worked side jobs with him all the time. Mix and mortar, sledgehammer and steps down, chimneys, building scaffolding, carrying brick. We did all that stuff. And the best, now, Jake, as you well know, Mike, your brother, Jake is more along the lines of my dad, where he can do those. He's a really good handyman. I think I'm better than I am, but here's my best piece of advice I can give you if you're going to do any of this, which is going to involve cutting and making sure you have the angles right and everything. This is not new. This is not earth-shattering, but it makes sense. Measure twice, cut once. Okay? Measure twice or measure 3 times. Measure as many times as you feel you need to, so you only have to cut once. Because you start screwing it up and then you start to screw up your material, you just got to keep buying more. Measure twice, cut once would be my biggest thing I could tell you. And I have tried just about everything. The couple things I won't mess with is electricity and water. Now, I did change a fixture at your sister's place, and I was actually pretty proud of myself for doing it. Did the whole thing, turned off the power and rewired everything, and I was actually somewhat shocked when I said, okay, Sid, turn the power back on, now try it, and it worked. And it has still worked to this day and has not caught their place on fire. So that's one of my more proud moments because those things scare me a little bit.
100%. Anything involving electricity, I basically won't touch. I watched in awe as Jake came to my house when I was living in Connecticut. I had to change out my whole garage door feature in there. He said, pay for parts and kick me a little extra cash. And I watched him do it, just toss the directions to the side, go to town, and you and I stood there like assholes just watching.
Oh. We just stood there and waited for him to tell us what to do. He reminds me of my cousin Eric, who is my brother Bob's age, would have been in his mid-60s. He unfortunately passed away as well. And when I played for the Oilers, when I got drafted by Houston, he lived down there. This was before me and your mother were married, so I was down there by myself. I bought a grill that came in a box. It didn't come obviously put together. And he came over, did the same thing. Opened it up, put everything on the floor. I handed him the directions. He looked at me, he laughed, and he threw them. And he never looked at the directions one time. And he put the whole fucking grill together. It was, the man was unbelievable. But Jake has that in him too, and I'm so jealous of it because I remember that moment. We just stood there looking like complete fools.
I'm jealous of anyone that looks at things and gets that HGTV vision where they can just move it around and see how it's supposed to go. So that'd be my advice. Read directions if there's directions. There's no shame in that. Know yourself, know what you're about, and know what you're not about. That's more important.
That's good advice.
All right. This one is from Kelsey Lafredo. New mom here. What do I get my partner for his first Father's Day?
Oh, wow. For his first Father's Day. So, listen, I got in trouble for this on a Mother's Day. All right? But I would love it if it were a Father's Day gift. So, this is what I got ripped on for years. And you were part of it. You and Jake were part of it. It was a Mother's Day. And we went to, why am I blanking?
Sharper Image.
Thank you. Sharper Image. And we were all sitting in different massage chairs. And we all loved them. And we're like, let's get your mother this. So we got her a massage chair, which I got ripped. To this day, I still get ripped for it, of how much she hated it and did not think it was a good gift. For her, taking care of the household and raising you 3 kids and doing all that she does, thought, this is awesome. When she wants a break, she can sit in a massage chair and let the chair take care of her. I thought that was a wonderful gift, and she hated it.
Well, she thought that you got it so that you and the rest of us could use it and not just her.
Well, I mean, she wasn't going to sit in it 24 hours a day, so there was going to be some time for us to sit in it. But I'll tell you this. So this is my advice. Get him a massage chair. Get him a massage chair. I guarantee you a guy will like that as a gift. I was still surprised your mother didn't, but a guy would love that as a gift.
Someone else asked, and I didn't put the question in the doc, did that chair make the trip to Arizona or South?
It did not. No. Are you kidding me? Your mother hated it. That was up in we ended up putting it up in your and Jake's room.
Oh, I know. It was great.
And it stayed there, and it got sold in the estate sale. And I think somebody bought it. I actually think somebody bought it.
I bet. It was a great chair. It had a calf massager built in, too. It was perfect.
Now, there was one time when your mother walked up and I was just in my underwear in the massage chair.
Jesus
and that wasn't a great moment.
That's a haunting visual.
Let me just say that wasn't a great moment. But no, that got sold. There is no way. Your mother hated it. She wasn't going to let that get into the house at Notre Dame or here in Arizona. No shot.
I would say that, or if that's maybe not in your price range, if that's a little bit too pricey, go the foot massager or one of the Theragun variants. There's a bunch of different ones now.
Theragun is really good. Yeah.
Those are awesome. It's like a little mobile massager.
I'm telling you, too, a foot massage is highly underrated.
Oh, honestly, give them a coupon to just go get a massage for one day. Because most guys, even us, even we who played high-level athletics, had all those things around us that you could use, all the resources, massage therapy, acupuncture, all that stuff. Now I don't take care of myself nearly as well. I don't go and do that anymore. Most adult men aren't doing that. And so if you give him a spa day where he gets to go get a massage and treat himself a little bit, probably love that.
It would be awesome. I got some of those for your mother over the years as well on different days, to go to the spa. But a foot massager would be great as well. I mean, oh, my God, there's nothing like getting those feet massaged and how good it feels after. So, again, whatever fits the price range.
This from Time Miles. What was the first brand of beer you ever had? And how old were you when you had it?
The beer was Genesee Cream Ale.
What in the fuck?
Yeah. And they would do Genesee Cream Ale Big Mouths, where it would be like a stout bottle, and it would not to have the regular, it'd have a bigger opening in it. But Genesee Cream Ale, I'm probably going to say I was 14, 15, right in that area there. Yeah. And I've always been a beer drinker. Never a ton. I did a lot of it in college in the NFL, that's for sure. I didn't do a ton of it in high school. But I did at least taste a beer that early. And then my brother Bob, when we were at Notre Dame and he was in the NFL, every now and then he would come to visit us. He would bring either a case of Michelob or sometimes I'd say bring some Genny Cream Ale so I can kind of relive the day.
There is nothing like going back to your first.
Yeah. But I mean, Old Milwaukee Light, Pabst Blue Ribbon, we would drink.
Love a good PBR.
Yeah. So, but the first one I'm pretty sure was a Genny Cream Ale, which I loved. I loved it.
You want to talk about gifting people beer. The greatest thing you did for us in college, and you did a fair amount, was you at some point had a beer deal and would get these cases delivered, and you just started sending them directly to the condo where me and all my roommates were living in college. So our fridge was always strapped, and we had like Miller High Life in there, stuff we had no right to be drinking as shit big college kids.
Well, I went through the same thing, and listen, I was happy to do that. If you're going to get sent cases of beer, you know us, me and your mother, we don't sit here and drink it at home. When we go out, we'll drink a little bit. So that would be wasted to come to the house. So college kids drink beer. So go to your guys' place, and we were glad we could off it there. But as far as The beer. Oh man, I forgot what I was going to say now. Just right out of my head, completely out of my head. With the beer, sent you beer. I was trying to think of somebody else that sent beer, and now it's gone. Maybe I'll remember it while we're talking about something else, but it's completely gone. But I was more than happy to help. More than happy to help you guys with your beer, because that's college. Though I will say, you guys, Jake, and Sydney, you guys all drank, it seemed, more mixed drinks than beer in college.
Well, I distinctly remember one point my sophomore year when we were at the height of our alcoholic intake. And at that point, it's taken you close to 20 beers to get drunk. And by then, you're so full, I would have to go in the backyard and puke just so I had room to function.
Right.
And so hard alcohol ends up just becoming a more efficient solution to what you want to do.
No, that's true. What I would do is in between a beer or two, I would take a couple of shots of tequila and mix that in there.
God, the worst thing I ever did, we were in Cabo on spring break one year, and we were beer bonging cerveza with 2 or 3 shots of tequila in it at a time. I remember just sitting in a hot tub, and we had a chef come and cook this dinner at our house. We had a really nice meal in our stomachs, and I'm sitting in the hot tub, a couple of these beer bongs in, and just barf into a bush right on the side of the hot tub with all of that nice food that we just ate, now completely fertilizing the land.
That's awful when you waste the food like that, man.
Yeah.
My big liquor thing was actually in the NFL. It was around playoff time, and we spent the week in Tampa working out and getting ready for the playoffs. And I think it was in Tampa. It was either in Tampa or California somewhere, maybe La Jolla. I don't know. I don't remember. It was somewhere warm because this was in December, so it was somewhere warm. And it was around New Year's. And we went out. We had the day off the next day or had to meet later. And that's where I lost it on Jägermeister. And I can't even sniff Jägermeister. This was so bad, Mike. The old linemen went fishing, and they brought back a bunch of fish that because they were hammered when we did it. And they said they brought it up to their rooms, and they said they were going to have the chef in the hotel cook it up. Next thing you knew, they were out on the balcony, and they were looking down at the pool. They were throwing the fish down. I don't know what floor they were on, and getting the dead fish to land, splash in the pool. Yeah, it was something. Yeah.
Jaeger will do that exact thing.
Horrible.
It'll have that exact. So there was a prompt on Twitter the other day of the alcohol that immediately makes you gag thinking about it, and actually mine is also Jaeger. I had a night where 4 of us downed 5 of those bottles of Jaeger that they came in.
No.
It was nightmare fuel. Still can't go back to it. That and Irish car bombs, I won't do. My freshman year spring game, I basically died. Kyle Rudolph, God love him, had to be a human seatbelt for me so I wouldn't fall off the counter, and I was a shell of myself. So
you had a couple of those human seatbelt times.
I regret
one
nothing.
of the spring game area I remember where I was at, and
that was the one. It was a beautiful disaster.
Yeah, it was.
Let's get a couple more in here.
Okay.
The 2 Bills asked for top 5 cereals. I'll ask for your top 2. 5 is a lot. So, what are your top 2 cereals of all time?
Wow, of all time. Just to throw some out there, Lucky Charms, Captain Crunch, Fruit Loops. I'm definitely a sugar cereal guy.
Sure.
Now, I don't eat it as much now. You know what I like now is Total. I eat the hell out of Total right now.
Don't talk shit about Total.
Need that fiber.
I'll give you my number 1 overall, Waffle Crisp. I have maintained this
really
for
good.
years. It was criminally underrated for a while, not even readily available, but made such an indelible impact on my life. It is my number 1 overall until further notice. Someone might knock it off eventually, but eventually ain't now.
I think I'd probably lean toward Lucky Charms. And then you could buy the box of just the marshmallow things. And the only thing that soured me on Lucky Charms was when Jake started dating his now wife, Jenny, and Jenny would be at our house and we'd have Lucky Charms. Jenny would reach in and take out the marshmallows. There'd be times you'd pour the box out and it would just be the cereal and none of the marshmallows because she had picked them all out.
Yeah, you got to call that what it is. That's domestic terrorism.
I agree.
That was an attack on your home.
We whenever Jenny's around now, we buy her own box of something so she doesn't pick shit out of ours. But I'd probably lean, just off the top of my head, I've always been a Lucky Charms fan.
Yeah, I think Frosted Mini Wheats also deserve to be up there. I've always said I like cereal with a little ass behind it, something that's actually going to get me good and full. Frosted Mini Wheats, enough of that sugar bite, but also something to really sink your teeth into.
Pretty solid. Yeah.
A stick to the rib cereal.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Frosted Flakes I like as well.
Yeah.
Again, none of the cereals I eat anymore, unfortunately.
No, it's listen, eventually you got to wave bye to those things, but eventually is not yet for me. All right, let's finish off with this one from Bobby Cantwell. Going back to your Eagles days, you're in a fight and you get to pick one guy from that locker room to be on your side for the fight. Who do you want?
Seth Joyner.
And you know what? Honestly, everybody who's ever been around Seth Joyner, because for years he would come on the radio show with you guys on Mike and Mike, and then on Golic and Wingo, and everyone who even spoke to him on the phone was afraid of that man.
Terrified. People are. I actually said to him a couple times. I said, Seth, dude, you got to smile more. He's like, why, man? I said, because you look like a fucking killer. I mean, and he was like that. You have the on-off switch. You go on the field, flip the on switch. He didn't have an off switch. He was like that off the field, man. If you weren't, got on his bad side. But when that dude, man, when his fuse was lit, there wasn't many that I would take over him. So you're saying out of that. And listen, there were a lot of A personalities in that locker room. I mean, Jerome Brown would have been one as well. He'd have gone absolute ape shit on somebody. And he was strong as hell. But Seth, man, Seth just scared people. He just scared people. So I would just want him to go look at somebody.
That's the thing. When you can automatically knock someone off their feet a little bit with the look, you're really walking in with an advantage. So that's a good choice.
And he still looks like he could play. I mean, he's still got that size to him as well, and just walks around with that look on his face, man. It's just, I just laugh at it because I've known him for so many years. But man, people are scared to death of him, and he doesn't understand why. I said, dude, come on,
buy a mirror, Seth.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you to everyone for the questions at GoJo Show on Twitter. We'll keep going back to that eventually in the future. Dad, one grill that I want for you. We mentioned it at the beginning of the podcast. Where do we go now in succession? Spoiler alert for everyone. I am putting up the stop signs here. It is going to be noted in the podcast notes. We always say this when we talk about TV shows. If you have not watched episode 3 of the latest season of Succession, move ahead in the podcast. We'll put the timestamp for the next part. Stop listening for the day. Whatever you got to do. Spoilers are coming ahead, and this is a threat level midnight spoiler for this series. So now that we've gotten out of the way, Dad, now that Logan Roy is fucking dead, what happens in this show? Oh, my God.
I mean, stunned. So he's on a plane going to Europe, I think he was going. And next thing you know, Tom is calling, I think he called Roman. He was trying to call Shiv, his wife, but he ended up calling Roman. They were on a boat because Khan, their other brother, was getting married. So they were one on a boat, one on a plane going opposite ways. And he starts talking about, Logan was sick in the bathroom and now he's getting chest compressions. But they never showed him early on. And I kept thinking, this is a ploy. This
100%.
is a ploy.
100%.
This is something they're setting it up. He's not really. They just want to see where they can get the kids in their headspace while they're all dealing with the sale that they're all trying to do to buy what they're trying to buy. They're trying to fuck with the kids. And then finally they showed him on the ground getting the chest compressions. And I was like, oh my God. And the whole show was that, of how the kids were dealing with it, how they were going to tell the press, how it was going to get out. Mike, the free-for-all that's going to go on now for Power because this is the last season of it, is going to be incredible. But that I was absolutely convinced halfway through it wasn't him. That was all a ploy. And then I spent the other half of it going, holy shit, he's dead. My God, I never saw that coming.
No, as I think Roger Sherman over at The Ringer said, anytime a show on HBO is going to do a wedding, you should assume the worst possible thing is going to happen. Like, that's the good. Only sure thing that we know about HBO weddings. And you're right, it happened so early in the season. The whole season had been set up to be Logan versus the kids.
Yes.
We had seen in the last episode, they had that meeting in the karaoke parlor where Logan's trying to manipulate them with emotion and apologies. And it just seems like it's all setting up for this power struggle. Oddly enough, in the GoJo deal, GoJo podcast here. But now you're right. And you saw it take place. It was a really well acted episode by everyone, especially the kids, all getting the phone put up to their dad's ear, figuring out on the fly, what are you going to say to your dad potentially the last time you ever talk to them? And when you kind of hate the guy. Almost all of them went through that thing of, I can't forgive you for what you've done to us. Yeah. And I can't forgive you for what you are, but I love you. But, Roman doesn't even say it. So there was a lot of complicated emotions, and the tension of that was so well acted by all of the siblings and everyone involved.
I thought it was great. And then to bring in the higher-ups of the corp and the board, okay, now we got to prepare a statement. Who wants to prepare? Just the whole, not to use the phrase of the show, the whole succession of how it's going now is really going to be, I can't wait, because then they showed scenes for how it was going to go the rest of the year, and it's just one battle after another. Tom is throwing his hat into the ring to run the whole thing. I mean, it's unreal of where this is going to go.
So me and Brandon usually do best line, best character, and peak Roy moment, peak Roy family moment for the show. Best line for me was as the kids started to turn the page, because they're trying to resist at first. Roman doesn't even want to admit that his dad is dead. They're all struggling with the grief. And then when the reality of the situation sets in, and the showrunner said after, part of this was showing what happens when a person of note dies in a way that's going to affect a lot of other people outside of just the family. And when Kendall starts talking about the funeral and says, we can do Reagan with some tweaks, I thought that was just so perfectly the show.
I thought it was great when he put the phone up to the stock market and he said, there's Dad. The difference of the stock market when it was getting out, that he was dead, of what the difference in the stock market was. I thought some of that was priceless, because you're right. It wasn't just a person dying. It was someone who's going to have an incredible effect on the stock market, on the industry, on the sale that's being talked about. Man, it is going to be and that's the first time I watched it when it was supposed to be on. I normally watch it the next couple of days, but I was actually awake, and I said, I'm going to watch it. And I watched it while it was on, and just laid there dumbfounded at what was happening.
How quickly that became the subject of the entire episode, too. It wasn't like something they snuck in at the end. It was the plot of the whole damn episode.
The whole thing. But I do love how they did it in the beginning, because you said you had the same thought. I thought they're bullshitting. They're bullshitting. They're trying to get the kids in some kind of headspace right now. Because he had just been with them, as you said, in the karaoke bar, trying to be apologetic, and they were all, fuck you, too late for that shit. And now they're all, I love you, Dad, I love you, Dad. And I thought, man, they're playing those kids right now.
That's why, to me, my favorite character is tough to pick in this episode. Like best character out of the entire thing, because you had the wedding going on the entire time. You had Roman trying to fire Jerry, who obviously he's had a very, we'll call it, complicated relationship during the course of this show.
That's a good word.
Yeah, complicated is being pretty generous with it. So best character, I would probably give that one to Roman, just because I think he was the one that was going through it the most. He was the one that was ready to turncoat and go help his dad in his pursuit of trying to get that GoJo deal to go through. And I think just him in the denial mode, he had always been the kid that still was holding on the most to how his dad felt about him.
I completely agree. I completely agree that. And who are we talking about that didn't want to watch it because there were no redeeming characters? And there aren't.
No.
There are no redeeming. There is not one character that you look at and you say, boy, I can find a lot of good in that person. There's none.
No.
None.
And that's only about to become more pronounced.
Yes.
The peak Roy moment for me on the show, Connor has had 2 back-to-back banger episodes, and he's been kind of in the center of them because of the wedding. But when they go out and tell him that Logan died, and he go, oh, well, he never liked me anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
He was the only one that responded with the truth of how a lot of them felt about him, but especially Connor for all the obvious reasons.
Yeah, what a weird character who's going to spend $100 million to keep his 1%.
Oh, yeah. But so now it's, who is going to jockey for this position? You've got Marsha, remember, who was with Logan and now is off in Milan
Right.
At least for now, she never signed the divorce papers, so have a feeling we're going to hear from her. Jerry, who was supposed to be fired as the interim CEO, that didn't happen. You've got Mattson, the GoJo owner that he was going to see. Any of the Roy kids, cousin Greg and Tom, the disgusting brothers.
The disgusting brothers. Yeah, Tom is going to try and worm his way in. It's Greg's just a basket case. He's a piece of work. But
I love him so much. It's very excited for the remainder of this season. One of the more shocking episodes of television HBO has done in a while. So kudos to everyone for pulling that off.
Yep, good job out of them.
Dad, let's finish this off with 3 quick stories. This, that, and the third to end the day around here. Just a couple of quick fires to get everyone going. This one, first and foremost, pertains to us. Let's start with this. Notre Dame women's basketball getting set to open the season next year against South Carolina in Paris. They're going to Paris, damn it.
I think that's awesome. I love when they do these one-offs in other places. And we have our one group text that has our buddy Darius Rucker in it, a South Carolina alum. And we've had more than a few bets over the years whenever South Carolina has played Notre Dame. We were just at the bowl game where they played each other with him in Jacksonville. And he chimed in right away. I'll be there. His youngest is going away to college this year. His son, Jack, he's like, as soon as Jack goes to college, I'm going to everything.
Yep.
So
empty nester.
I think that's awesome. I think that is absolutely great. And I think now we do it after South Carolina finally lost some of their stars. So that's good.
Yes, exactly. 3 picks in the first round of the WNBA draft. I like the timing we have here.
Yes.
So that'll be November 6th. It's the first NCAA regular season game played in the French capital, which is also going to host the 2024 Summer Olympics. And in the way too early ESPN Top 25, South Carolina is 7 and Notre Dame is 10. So that'll be a top 10 matchup to start the season for both of those teams. Very excited for that. Got to see if we can swindle our way over there somehow. But
how about it? There's got to be some kind of work-related thing we can be doing over there.
DraftKings, let's talk, baby. We got ideas.
There you go. Okay.
Dad, let's get to that. I saw this news broken by Ariel Helwani, another DraftKings guy and our former colleague at ESPN. The Nate Diaz-Jake Paul pro boxing bout is a done deal. August 5th, DAZN pay-per-view, 8 rounds at 185 pounds. Are you interested?
I liked watching Nate Diaz fight. I'm not going to lie.
But you were the one, and we talked about this. With Jake Paul, the concern always was, if you finally took that L, does it dull any of the shine? We're going to find out, and I got to imagine this is still going to do some pretty serious numbers because he didn't look like he was totally out of his depth in that fight, and so I feel like that's going to continue to kind of fuel this.
He didn't, but you wonder, should he have taken the rematch first? Because if he loses this one to Diaz,
you might be in trouble.
He can to lose it to Diaz. You could definitely lose some air then, right?
Yeah, so, 2 would probably feel weird, especially if it goes badly. Because, again, for Tommy Fury, who he fought, Tyson Fury's brother,
right.
Certainly the smaller and lesser of the two as a fighter. Yeah. He's a guy that's still pretty early in his fighting career, but was a professional, was a guy that it looked pretty close with the entire time. This is a little bit different. So, yeah, this would probably have a pretty tough blowback if now all of a sudden you got 2 in the L column.
I wonder which would bring more money. Well, I don't know what he's getting for this fight, and I don't know what he would have gotten for the rematch, but I do think this could start. And we know in that business, now we're mixing, again, UFC and boxing, so we're kind of mixing the two where – you get a couple losses and you start to disappear. You know, Conor McGregor, he was the talk. Ronda
Rousey.
Ronda Rousey was, the talk of everything, and then loses a couple times and you disappear. So Jake Paul's done a nice job of not only staying relevant, but winning what he has fought until this last bout. So he has done a good job in this YouTube world we live in right now. But even that, in the era of show me something now, you get a couple of losses, especially if they're back-to-back. That could make it interesting.
Yeah, him and his brother have been really good at holding attention. I went to WrestleMania 39, and Logan was there. He fought Seth Rollins, and they get it. They get the showmanship side of this, and so that's why they're going to keep having a chance, because they understand this is sell. They understand the fight game.
They are very, very good at the sell job, and they do a great job of it. Absolutely right.
All right, let's finish off with the third. Dad, we've both seen Cocaine Bear, right?
I have not seen it.
You didn't see Cocaine Bear?
I know I was supposed to go see it, and I forgot why I couldn't go, but I heard it was really good, and I didn't see it. No.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, it's a movie that is right up your alley, despite what some naysayers might say over on the Levitard show, and I won't even dignify that with a response. It was a phenomenal movie. Elizabeth Banks did a phenomenal job directing it. Our friend of the program, O'Shea Jackson Jr., was incredible in his role in that movie. And so I don't want to get too much into that, other than to say it was a great movie and you should see it. And the reason it's relevant right now is because we could have another one, at least with potentially the source material in the works. So
I saw this. Yeah.
This headline from the AP. Yeah. One of Pablo Escobar's cocaine hippos killed in a highway collision in Colombia. So apparently back in the day, Pablo Escobar brought a bunch of hippos illegally over to Colombia when he was at the height of his power. They have now spread into the surrounding area. I think there's over 100 of them, and they're not native to the area, so they're looked at as a threat to the environment around there. Right. And one of them wandered onto the highway, ended up getting hit. Unfortunately, is no longer with us. Always sucks because I love hippos, even though I know they are very violent animals. You and I got to see them pretty up close and personal in Africa. One of the most intimidated I've ever been in my entire life, as we are going on one of these safaris in the morning to try and get over and go to like a hot air balloon or something. And our driver knew almost instinctively to stop. And we were wondering why. And then 4 hippos just go running across the road. And they're as big as a small house.
It's like when all of a sudden you go to an NBA game and you're sitting courtside and you're like, holy shit, these guys are way bigger than I thought, and they move incredibly well. That was it with the hippo, because I had never seen one up close, and they were right there, and you're like, oh my God. And they can be mean suckers as well. Yeah, that was an eye-opener, no doubt about it.
Yeah, that one, watching a boulder come to life and then move at that pace, nothing that big should move that fast. Nope. So, Dad, would you be in sight unseen on Cocaine Bear with the sequel being Cocaine Hippo?
Without a doubt. I would absolutely be in on that. I got to wonder, too, the damage to the... was it a truck or a car?
Oh, it had to be.
There's no doubt it had to be.
The family inside was all right, or the people inside the car were all right. That car cannot have survived that.
No, there's no shot you could hit a hippo and the car not be completely total. But I would absolutely be into that. Absolutely be into that.
Would be a terrifying animal to give cocaine to, because it's amphibious. It can do both. It's something that's incredibly adept at moving at high speeds in water and on land, so you get to add that element to it that we didn't have as much of with the bear.
Well, remember when we were on that safari that the one guide told us that there was a walking tour going on, and there was actually a couple of people that were killed by hippos, that they attacked them. And I'm like, who's walking in there? I mean, God, some of the shit we saw, could you imagine just walking in there? No. Oh, my God. Yeah, they're scary.
I got enough respect for nature to know where I'm not supposed to be.
Yep.
And if I am going to come in and observe what you got going on out there, I'm going to do it respectfully, from a distance, in something that can get me away in a hurry. That is the only way that I'm going to go about that.
Yeah, we never left those Jeeps. Stood up in them, looked at them, but never left them. Never said, oh, let me go walk and get a little closer to this lion. Yeah, I mean, because it's wild. You sit there and think about it. If you're at a zoo, you're watching in a cage, you're sitting there. This was one of the best trips we ever went on. We were like, you're walking in their world. Mm-hmm. You know what? And they'll think nothing of just tearing you apart. It's like, okay, your world, you win. It's just like why I don't like swimming in the ocean. That's a shark's world. He's welcome to it. I don't need to be in it.
And that's before you even give him the duffel bag full of cocaine. So again, Elizabeth Banks, here is your next muse. Paint upon this canvas and give us another work of art.
Around a guy who is known for cocaine in Pablo Escobar. So there you go. It's perfect.
It all works. The stories just write themselves sometimes. Yep. If you enjoyed the story of this podcast, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, and review. Leave us a 5-star rating. Also, make sure you do the same for Golic and Smetty, wherever you get your podcast. And check us all out on the DraftKings YouTube channel under the GoJo with Mike Golic Jr. tab. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you tomorrow.